So, Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, is one of the last big-name free agencies of this offseason. Julio's still out there, and there's some other guys who are still out there, but Mathieu is just about wrapping it up. So let's check what the Saints got in him. Why did the Chiefs let him go? Are some of the Chiefs fans' questions about effort fair? And what does he still bring to the table? These are all questions that I have set out to answer in this week's Film Room. I think the best game that Tyrann Mathieu played all season was the very first one he played in week 2 versus Baltimore. He missed week 1 with COVID. And I actually broke down some of these plays when I was talking about Lamar Jackson in my first All-22 review on this channel. But anyway, some of these throws are great by Lamar, but it's just better defense from Tyrann Mathieu, like this play. They're playing cover 6 here, so the boundary corner's got a quarter of the field. Mathieu, the safety's got a quarter of the field. And then the field corner has got this entire half. Now, the wide receiver that's mostly threatening Tyrann's zone here is number 14 working over the middle, and you're going to see that. But he doesn't really pay much attention to 14 at all, and instead he's reading Lamar Jackson's eyes and seeing that Lamar is looking right at Hollywood Brown, who has his hand up, signaling he's wide open for the touchdown. So he kind of forgoes his assignment here, I would say, a little bit, or it's absolutely not a bad thing, but he just recognizes where the immediate danger is and starts booking it over there instead of getting too caught up in 14 where Lamar's not looking. And he is able to disrupt a perfect throw from Lamar that almost certainly would have resulted in a touchdown and saves the day for Kansas City here. And there's not a lot of other guys on the Chiefs roster I trust to do anything like that. And it's not even the only time in the game where he did something like this. Again, cover 6. This one's not as good of a throw by Lamar, but quarter, half, as you can see. And once again, number 14 is the one mostly threatening Mathieu's zone by working the middle of the field. But Mathieu, once again, the eyes are on Lamar Jackson. It's 3rd and long here. Lamar is going to try to be the hero, trying to squeeze it in between the safety and the linebacker to Hollywood, who's kind of bending this route inside. Mathieu is not interested in what's going on over here, understands exactly what Lamar is trying to do, and it starts working towards the middle of the field and gets himself in the perfect position to pick this ball off and even returns it for a little bit of a nice gain here. And Honey Badger's getting a little older. I think he's 30 now, but to me, it doesn't seem like he's fallen off a cliff athletically. On this play, it's a pretty familiar sight for Chiefs fans. It's a pretty familiar sight with Tyrann Mathieu. The other guys around him blowing at coverage, because in this look, obviously there's no one up directly over Hollywood Brown, so this would indicate that maybe Bolton's dropping back in a zone, maybe it's a cover 2, he's deep, there's the flat, something like that maybe. But someone needs to account for him because obviously Tyrann Mathieu can't do it. He's way back there. But Bolton, I think, is the one who makes a mistake here and is going to blitz right away, which leaves this slant route completely undefended, and he's got to clean up the mess. And you see kind of the ability to close this gap versus a very fast player in Hollywood Brown here, right? At this point, it's a foot race, and he's not in the dust, okay? So that's good enough for me to say Mathieu has still got enough athleticism to be a very functional safety, or at least he did at the beginning of the year, and I couldn't really notice it or it being a huge problem by the end either. Now, Mathieu didn't look quite that dominant in any of the other games this year, but he still looked like the Chiefs' best option in coverage. Here, once again, they're playing cover 6, it looks like, quarter, half, at least to my eyes, but Mathieu's here playing in the slot this time, not a deep zone. And you've got Boyd releasing vertically, going up the seam. He's going to reroute him and then direct his attention to T. Higgins, who's going to be running a dig over the middle. And I like the quickness here. I like the recognition, right? Get hands on Boyd, check him a little bit. There's the eyes on Higgins working over the middle of the field, and then quick hips, turn it around, and he's able to contest this catch. And he's 5'9", and Higgins is like 6'4", and getting this off the top shelf. Sometimes you're just physically mismatched in a case like this, but I still think it's pretty good coverage and pretty good quickness and pretty good recognition from Tyrann Mathieu here. And if this was like Daniel Sorensen playing safety here, he would probably still be following Tyler Boyd up the field, you know? So I'm still crediting this as a solid defensive play by him that I don't really trust the other Chiefs defensive backs to make. On this play, Mathieu is going to be matched up with Jerry Jeudy, who is running a crossing route, but Judy's a crafty route runner, and he tries some trickery here because at this point, once he clears Willie Gay, the linebacker, everything about him is pointed downfield. He's selling vertically, right? And he might be trying to get into the blind spot of Mathieu and then break this outside, which he likes to do. Or he's trying to get Mathieu to flip his hips, and then he's going to cut inside. But Mathieu does a pretty good job, keeping his eyes on Judy so he can't really get in the blind spot. And instead of really flipping his hips, panicking to try to run with him downfield, he just kind of hits the back pedal real smooth like and doesn't panic. And then when Judy does eventually break this back outside, he's right in the position where he can just run with him. That's good coverage. And you see, like, look at the guys he's dealing with here, all right? How do you drop that? I guarantee you can't see him on screen. I guarantee you Matthew's out there with his hands up or his hands on his head, exasperated by what his teammates are doing. So this is all to say that, at least in coverage, I think he's still worth getting excited about if you're a Saints fan. He didn't fall off a cliff athletically as far as I could tell. He wasn't blowing coverages left and right like the rest of the Chiefs. If you are going to trust Pro Football Reference's numbers, this was the lowest amount of targets they've charted him with. This is the lowest amount of yards allowed they've charted him with. If you trust PFF grades at all, his coverage grade was pretty good. It was the run defense and the pass rushing grade that was very dicey with him. And Mathieu Honey Badger has more dog in him in the eyes of the public. Like, he is the player who's got that dog in him, right? Like, when you say that, he's one of the first guys who comes to mind as like a tenacious, feisty player. Don't think he deserved that label at all this year. I think he was clearly frustrated. I think that he wasn't playing through the whistle, giving up on plays that he shouldn't have given up on, and just making business decisions regarding tackling. And that's why his run support grade was so bad this year. He's going to need to flip that switch on again in New Orleans. Even in the AFC Championship game with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, I think there are some plays where it's fair to question his effort. Like this play, and I get it here. I mean, I understand if you think I'm being way too harsh because he's the field safety in cover 2, and this play is a screen developing miles away from him. Okay? This is not his play to make. But once the running back catches the football, I think I would like to see him rally to it. All right? Because this corner is basically in the same situation, and we see him put forward some effort, and he actually has a chance. He screws it up, but he has a chance to make a tackle. I think Mathieu has even more depth, and as soon as this running back gets it, if he started like working his way towards the end zone here, he'd have a chance to make the stop before he crosses the goal line. But Mathieu just is walking around up there. I don't know. I'd like to see a little bit more from the heart and soul of this defense, you know? I'd like to see him book it over there and help defend this, but he doesn't, and I get it. Not his play to make. A lot of Chiefs screw this up. But still, something like just kind of walking around, I don't know. This is another example from this game, I think. We got Chris Jones and Melvin Ingram combining to run a stunt here. And I think Chris Jones messes this up. We've got him doing a nice job taking up both blockers. Ingram does a nice job shooting this gap and disrupting Burrow. But I think this is where the mistake gets made. He's allowing himself to kind of get turned out of this play by 75. He's out of it. He's sort of washed. And Burrow's going to take off through that gap. He does get around a little bit, but it's too late. It's too late. Tyrann Mathieu notices this immediately. Before Burrow has even reached the line of scrimmage, Mathieu has already thrown his hands up in the air in frustration, in disgust. And to me, there's time to yell and be frustrated after the play. Right now, I'd like to see him try to beat Burrow to the first down marker. It is third down. The Super Bowl is on the line here in the second half. And maybe I'm completely out of line. Maybe this is just not at all his responsibility and you got to trust your teammates to make the play there. But I don't know. You can cover this ground in no time at all as an NFL player. There's no one in your way. I think you try to, instead of throwing your hands up in disgust, like just book it over there. And even if it doesn't work out, like at least you can say that you led by example and you put in full effort. I just don't think that this is full effort from Tyrann Mathieu. I think that that's just kind of frustration. Maybe it's unfair for me to say that. I would love the perspective of maybe a safety, someone who's played safety out there is like, is this your responsibility at all? Or is this a justified response for Tyrann Mathieu? Or could he have done more here? I personally kind of think he could have done more on this play. Now, I could definitely see the argument that those are too nitpicky. Neither of those plays were really his fault or his responsibility, but there are a lot of plays out there where I am confident that they were his fault and he needed to be more physical or he needed to put in more effort. And it's when he's like tackling. It's not good. Nick Bolton, the linebacker, is going to miss the tackle here. He's the safety coming downhill. I think everybody knows this about tackling who has ever played football, even me on like the middle school level, is you want to run through the tackle and you want to wrap up. You want to keep your feet moving and you want to wrap up. Mathieu is going to not keep his feet moving. He's just going to shuffle, stop his feet, and he's not going to wrap up. He's just going to kind of put his arms out and hope that it maybe knocks the ball out of Julio's hands. I don't know in what world he expects this to work, or he expects Julio to go down as a result of that effort. And now Julio is going to pick up several more yards after that. That one I know he could have been more physical on, because they're going to run power here. And this guard absolutely obliterates Melvin Ingram, and the linebacker Bolton gets caught up in the wash. A big hole for Mike Boone, and it's just the safeties left. Now, Boone's got a whole head of steam, and just Thornhill is not enough to really stop him. So here comes Mathieu. Is Mathieu going to really put his shoulder down and pop him, try to stonewall him? Is he going to wrap up the legs and stop the push forward? No, Matthew's going to like tickle him and then just let him by, and he goes and powers forward for another 5 yards. Again, hit the dude here. I get that he might be going for the ball here, but again, tickling is the word I would use. No shoulder, no leg drive, no wrap up. And that's why his run defense grade was so sorry this year. Stuff like that. This is the last example I'll show from a playoff game. He's in the box playing strong safety. It's just going to be a quick throw to the tight end, and he is all alone. This is his play to make. He's coming downhill. I mean, just run through the tackle and kill this guy. But instead, he's going to ease up, stop his feet, almost start leaning backwards and just softly extend his hands, which, of course, results in him getting a stiff arm right to the chest. Freiermuth spins out of his tackle attempt. He lets someone else make the tackle, 38. Well, he just kind of softly tries to punch the ball out. He then immediately turns around and starts yelling at Thornhill. Why? I don't know. Bro, this is your fault. There is no one else to blame here except for you, and he still has his hands up, throwing, yelling. It's like, man, what are you yelling at Thornhill for? You did that. And it's just like some of that is frustrating. And I really wouldn't care about this so much if he was a traditional free safety, a deep safety where if you've got the range and coverage ability, who cares if you can defend the run and tackle or not? That's not what you're really asked to do. But Mathieu's not that. Mathieu, his calling card is his versatility. I mean, you look at how the Chiefs used him last year. I mean, we got snaps at corner. We've got snaps in the slot. We got plenty of snaps as like a linebacker alignment, and then some snaps off the edge. He's mostly used like in the box, and that's how he's always been used. That's his role. You don't really treat him like a traditional rangy free safety. He's short. He doesn't quite have the length to disrupt passes down the field like that, you think. So you'd like to have him in the box, but he's not even physical anymore. So do you really trust him there? That's my concern with him. Not so much the coverage, which is still the most important thing, but is he still Honey Badger? I think it's fair to question. Now, I do think playing for his hometown Saints on a better defense that isn't as embarrassing could light a fire under Mathieu, and this could end up being a free agency steal. I truly believe that. However, there isn't nothing to be concerned about, okay? There's a reason, I think, why he sat in free agency so long and the Chiefs didn't bring him back. It's not for no reason. There is a chance that he's not the player that he used to be, in my opinion. I think that he can turn it up next year. I think that he's capable of it. I think he's athletically gifted enough to still fill that role. I think it's more of a mindset thing. And playing in New Orleans will hopefully unlock that dog in him once again. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to comment some players you'd like to see reviews on in the future. I'm dropping these every week, of course. It's getting down to it in terms of ideas for me. Mathieu was like my last good one because he just signed and people have interest in him. And the effort thing I thought was an interesting question. So please leave lots of ideas. and comment what you thought about the video and leave it a like and subscribe to stay hot and do all these good things. And I will see you next week.